This is the big one, folks. This is the big event that the market has been looking for. And I'm not talking about the Fed Jackson Hole meeting. No, I'm talking about something much larger. I'm talking about NVIDIA's earnings on Wednesday afternoon. And believe it or not, the stock has a very easy to read tell. So in other words, you want to get in a poker game with NVIDIA, or at least the market, ahead of or after NVIDIA's earnings, because there's a real easy way to take a read of what the stock is likely to do. I'm going to walk you through that in just a couple of minutes. Let's go through some very quick numbers in terms of a summary on earnings per share. So, as I mentioned, Wednesday afternoon, NVIDIA is going to announce their earnings. It's $2.09, the expectations from Wall Street right now. Last quarter was a 92-cent expectation. They delivered $1.08. So we're up to $2.09. Obviously, everybody is hot on the stock. And why not? It's the big name out there in artificial intelligence. So it earns that respect. Now, looking at the summary, over the last 19 quarters, NVIDIA has beat 18 times in terms of the earnings expectations. So analysts had one number. NVIDIA stock came out with a penny or better than those expectations, 18 out of 19 times. On average, it was 192% better. Now, that's a huge number, but there's something in there when you break down these numbers. There was a hot period for NVIDIA's earnings. That was between 2018 and 2020. Analysts really weren't that hot on the stock. If you believe it, analysts' expectations were very low, and their buy recommendations on the stock were low. This was in a period where it was video game cards, and they were kind of getting into the Bitcoin trend, obviously. Nothing has been larger than artificial intelligence. During that hot period, they beat analysts' expectations by an average of 377%. That's a mind-numbing number. So, the street has kind of caught on and raised their expectations for the stock. Buy recommendations are around 92% from the Wall Street analyst community. And obviously, those expectations on earnings per share have gone up as well. Over the last 2 years, to give you a little bit of an average here, we've only seen 7% beats on the analyst expectations. So earnings per share have been a little more grounded. So how does the stock do? Let's take a look at the earnings summary. And what I do here is break this down. If you're a long-term investor, you're not too worried about a 2-week performance window on NVIDIA unless you're looking for an opportunity to possibly get into the stock, right? So, shorter term, 2-week window before and after the trade. Here's what you've got. We're going to look at the after first because the tell is what the stock does before. So 57.9, we'll round that up to 58% of the time, is the win rate. So in other words, 2 weeks after the announcement, earnings per share announcement for NVIDIA, the stock is trading up 58% of the time. It's not much better than a coin toss. So the traders here have to make a decision. The winning percent, so in other words, those 2 weeks when it's traded up higher 58% of the time, it's up by 11.5%, we'll call it 12%. The at any time return, so whether it's a winner or a loser 2 weeks after the earnings announcement, you've got it up 0.8%. When it loses, it's down 10.7%. So 58% of the time, it's trading higher by 11.5%, and then got 52% of the time, 42% of the time when the stock is trading down 10.27%. So this really is kind of a coin toss. For the traders, you want to make certain that you're on the right side of the trade if you're trading for the next 2-week time frame. Now, you can see the earnings per share on the chart below. We actually have those expectations rising and then a big drop in both the expectations and the earnings per share results. This is when we were making that switch over to AI and things were a little bit hairy. There were a lot of things going on really with NVIDIA at that time. We're back on that trend where the stock is trading higher and the earnings per share results are trading higher on a quarter-by-quarter basis. The thing to remember here is last quarter we were at a 92-cent expectation, delivered $1.08. This quarter, $2.09 on the expectation, so almost double what analysts were expecting last quarter. That is because the stock blew everything out and their outlook was fantastic. So a little bit of optimism, actually a lot of bit of optimism towards this stock as we go into this earnings. What should you do? Let's look at the tell right now. This is where it's interesting. There is a tell. Well, I'll call it a tell. So in other words, the market doesn't have a great poker face when it's trading NVIDIA 2 weeks prior and after earnings. Here it is. Pre-earnings performance for NVIDIA is relatively a good indicator of how the market's going to react. So in other words, if I see the market do something ahead of earnings, there's a good indication that you're going to actually see a different result, or let's call it a forecastable result after earnings. 6 of the 19 quarters, the stock has traded the same direction before and after earnings. So let me kind of explain that. If you look at those last 19 quarters, you've got, we'll call it 6 out of 19. We're less than 30%, right around that 30% mark, if you will, or a third of the time that the stock has traded higher, so rallied into earnings, and then actually traded higher afterwards. Or the reverse, traded lower into earnings, and then traded even lower in the 2-week period afterwards. So the remaining periods of time, that 70% or so, the stock has done one thing and then the opposite. This is a fantastic indicator that NVIDIA is an expectational trade. So in other words, the markets will expect one thing and then they'll react a different way. One of the oldest things we talk about here is buy the rumor, sell the news. This stock does one or the other 70% of the time. It indicates a strong buy or sell the rumor, and then a strong sell or buy the news. So all you have to do is kind of look at what NVIDIA has done running into the earnings. That's where things get interesting. When you look at what NVIDIA has done for the last 2 weeks, there was a period here where it was actually getting a little bit soft, pulled back, and then all of a sudden the stock started revving up right into the earnings announcement. Today we're trading a little bit lower. It's Tuesday, down around that $457 level or so. It's broken as high as that $460 and then kind of bounced around here. But the magic is that we have come from $400 all the way to $450, a little more than a 10% rev up into the earnings. That's giving you that indication that the market is very excited about NVIDIA's results. And why not? Remember, last quarter, the company came in and did far better than expectations, and the stock went up 22% over the following 2 weeks. Investors are expecting the same from NVIDIA this quarter by this type of movement. Now, notice that the stock right now has a little bit of a glass ceiling right around that $475 level. That is for a couple of good reasons. When I look at what's out there in terms of the open interest on the options on NVIDIA, September expiration. Right now you have a large buildup of call open interest at that $475 level, as well as up to $500, where there is a ton of call open interest in the September calls. Puts, you have to go well below the $400 level to start getting a little bit of those strikes where the puts actually outweigh the calls. So the stock has this built-in range right now between 400 and 500 based on the derivatives. The options market will usually give you another indication of what traders are expecting from the stock. Right now, they're drawing lines at 500. That's a very strong price expectation right now from the calls that are out there in the options market. And at the 400 level, you've got the puts that are getting stronger. So the bears are drawing a line at 400, betting that the stock's going to go there or lower. That makes how I'm trading this a little easier. I'm not touching it. I'm not buying it ahead of earnings right now because I believe the expectations have revved up. It's like that Disney example we talked about weeks ago. Analysts, investors, everybody's optimistic. Means it's already priced in. At $475, NVIDIA is priced for perfection. At $500, if we were trading there, I would say we're over expectations, well over price for perfection. I would expect the stock come back down. Now, what happens here? We'll get the results on Wednesday. There'll be a frenzy of trading Wednesday afternoon. Thursday is where you're going to get the first indication of how the market's going to react. I believe that you'll see the stock have a tendency to sell off on these results, even if they are good, because of last quarter's being outlandishly, just phenomenal. Where do I trade this because as a long-term investor, I do like NVIDIA. I do love the long-term trends. Note that the 50-day moving average is trading higher. You've also got this little pattern that I talk about with my followers, which is a 20-day coming down and touching on the 50-day. Just a little bit of a touch and go is what I call it technically. It means the stock is consolidating. Right now it's been at the 450 level that it's been consolidating. It means there is a tendency for the stock to get more volatile over the next couple of weeks. I trade this as follows. A touchdown on that $400 level, and I will be a buyer long-term of NVIDIA shares. And short-term, I will do the same. I'll expect the stock to start rebounding because everybody is sitting on the sidelines waiting for an opportunity to buy this artificial intelligence phenomenon. At 400, I turn into a short and long-term buyer. I add to long-term positions, riding out this trend. The stock is in a long-term bull market trend, and you accept the fact that this is just the market selling the news. Now, if NVIDIA comes out with numbers that are lower than expectations, I'm still looking at the stock as a buy around that 400 level. And after that, just take $50 off and I'd be buying again, adding to my long-term positions at 350. What if the company comes out and blows out those expectations and blows through the 500 level? My expectations are we'll see it come back down below 500, track across it as a little bit of consolidation happens, and then you're going to see another rev up in the stock. That's exactly what happened last quarter. We ramped up. You can see up to that $360, $370 level. The stock shot higher above 400. Think of that as 500, and then came back down below. And that's when everybody started coming in and flooding the market with those buy orders. And the stock took off and screamed through that 450 level and looked like it was going to end up at 500 ahead of earnings. So there you have it. The easy take, long-term bulls. Identify that $500 level for a consolidation before it ramps up and takes off again on great news. Anything that comes in line is going to take the stock down below that 450 that we've been trying to bounce around and down to 400, and that's where I add to positions. Short-term traders, if you're trading options on it, let it run through that $500 level and then trade it back down on a little bit of people taking profits on this news before it ramps up and takes off above 500. On bad news and a touch of that 400, I come in with short-term calls and trade it up to 450 and understand that you'll probably see a little bit of a pullback there, and then the longer-term bulls are going to come in and support this stock. Either way, I see NVIDIA heading through the $500 level over the next couple of months. Short-term, take your indication or your lead from what the market's done, and everybody has ramped this price up, and understand that the stock usually reverses that direction after earnings. We'll follow up a little bit, maybe on Thursday or Friday this week. It's going to be an interesting call either way. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm Chris Johnson with MoneyMorning.com. Looking forward to giving more of these ideas and always wishing you the best trading success. Have a great day.